Welcome to Let's Talk Property, an informal podcast show all about the UK property and mortgage market. I'm Nizam, and joining me is my co-host Lee. Whether you're a seasoned property investor or just starting to think about buying your first home, this podcast is for you. We'll be discussing a range of topics, including the latest market trends, tips for finding the perfect property, and how to secure the best mortgage deal. So join us as we explore the world of property and help you make informed decisions about your next property purchase. So today's episode is going to be talking about buyers achieving a £12,125 discount on their purchase.
Sounds like a good topic. I'm really intrigued. We haven't spoken about anything about this before the podcast, so
we haven't.
You've just jumped in with the topic yourself, and I have no idea. What this means, so I'm really intrigued.
And the reason I did that is because I thought, actually, we'll have a little chat before we hit record. And then I think, that would have been quite good to include on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So okay, absolutely. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, hey. What does it mean then? What I guess, yeah.
What is it? So I came across an article. I was looking at sort of obviously the latest news that's going on, and saw an article very recently, as in the last few days, and it was on Property Wire. So we'll add the link in the description so people can click on the article and see what we're referencing. And the title is "Buyers Achieving a £12,125 Discount to Achieve a Sale," and that spiked my interest because I thought, hang on a little. 1 second, what's this all about? And basically I read the article. It's not a particularly long article, but it's got some commentary from the executive director at Zoopla, and it's got some interesting statistics on the latest sort of market data for purchases and home movers. And I thought, let's, because it's easy to get, as with everything, it's easy to get sucked in with the news cycle and the headlines and the top 10 news articles, but we don't always sit and actually look at, okay, what does the data say, what's the market actually saying, rather than just relying on someone else to interpret it. Let's interpret it ourselves and actually see what the market is doing at the minute.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, like you say, you have to take things with a pinch of salt, but it's going to be interesting to see what you're going to be talking about. Yeah,
absolutely. I'll dig in then. So all I wanted to do, I guess, is just take away a few of the points that I got from this article and share them with everyone, so you don't have to read it yourself. But yeah, so I guess the first thing that I wanted to talk about is it is looking, well, certainly by the headline, but actually from some of the information in there, it's looking more and more likely that we are entering into a buyer's market in more parts of the UK now. So we talked about this for months around actually what is the potential outcome of prices dropping, interest rates rising on the mortgage side. Well, we're more likely to see a buyer's market, and it sounds like we're starting to see more and more of that now. So buyers are typically negotiating, well, the average negotiation was 4.2% discount off the asking price in September. So that is showing actually, I guess, a couple of things. You can look at that either way. You can look at it, actually, I thought it would be more than that. There's a lot of talk of house prices are plummeting 10, 15, 20%. But actually, that's a discount of 4.2%. Granted, it is actually based on the asking price. So you could also argue, well, the asking price has been accurately, marketed in the right area, depending on the market. And the other thing is despite increased activity, demand is still lower than it was a year ago. So we are still seeing, fewer buyers than we did this time last year. But I'll come on to sort of the September data specifically. So first time buyers, home buyers, buyer's market is a positive sign for a lot of people. It means you have more negotiating power. You can potentially secure your dream home at a lower price, which is always nice. And I was just going to say, keep an eye on the market, keep an eye on market trends in your area, look at sold prices for properties that you're looking at specifically, which you can do on Rightmove and Zoopla. Make an informed decision and try and negotiate a price that you think is fair. Some people will sometimes lean on us as a mortgage advisor to kind of say, what should I offer? And that question is impossible to answer because there's so many different factors that are at play. I think you just need to, unless you're up against 100 other buyers, I think you just need to put an offer in that's fair, that you think is respectful, but actually, is also going to give you a chance of getting a property agreed.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think it sounds like probably the biggest beneficiaries of a buyer's market is probably first-time buyers, isn't it? You would say. I guess people buying and selling, they've still got a property to sell, and they've got to sell in a buyer's market, but they've got to buy in a buyer's market. So there's some advantage to home movers. But I guess it sounds like the biggest beneficiaries to this is people trying to jump on the ladder. I think it was like you say, last year, the market was so tough for first-time buyers. They were getting outbid, they couldn't stretch. There were people going over the asking price. It feels like, it could be, with the buyer's market creeping in, it could be a really good time for first-time buyers to take advantage of that, because they haven't got a property to sell, and there's not as many people buying. So, and as you say, the discount is really heavy. It sounds like there's some good discounts there.
Yeah, and look, that £12,125 isn't plucked out the air. It's it's 4.2% is the discount, and then they've just based that on the average house price in the UK. So that is what it equates to in real terms. I think so. The next topic, or next sort of bit of information I got from here is the increased buyer activity in September. So I think everyone I spoke to in the industry has felt August as a really, really quiet month. I mean, this year's been really difficult to predict what's happening with interest rate rises and lenders making lots of changes on their mortgage criteria, which has obviously impacted on people being able to move and buy their first home. But in September, there were 12% more buyers in the market compared to the previous months. So that's a massive shift in terms of, more and more people are actually now taking action. I think, based on a lot of people I spoke to, and I think we've had similar conversations, Lee, is lots of people kind of holding off to see what is happening with interest rates, what's happening with house prices, because there's talk of interest rates going up, prices dropping, and that's exactly what we've seen. But actually, by how much? And a lot of people are kind of just sitting on their hands waiting. If you're not urgently needing to get on the property ladder, then actually just seeing what's going to happen. Whereas with the Bank of England base rate announcement in September, saying that actually they're not going to increase it, inflation was slightly lower than predicted. Therefore, we're starting to see a more positive outlook. I think people are now kind of saying, okay, feels like there's a bit more stability in interest rates. There's a bit more stability in house prices. It's not quite as volatile. I'm going to take action. I'm going to actually start to look at this now, and whether it's looking at reducing your budget to make sure your monthly payments are still affordable, or just reviewing what you're able to buy. Either way, people are now buying. So this article suggests the recent surge in buyer activity is partly due to improved consumer confidence, and also the uptick in inquiries. They have also put down to seasonal factors as well. So, again, going back to a few years ago, we could always predict as a mortgage advisor, mortgage protection advisor, you could always predict when you were going to be busy and when you were going to be quiet. And you'd obviously try and take your annual leave and your own holiday when everyone else is on holiday, because actually I'm not going to get hold of anyone, or people aren't really going to be moving or buying at those particular times. And August was, quite obviously one of those months where we would usually be quite quiet. And it feels like almost a return to that sort of seasonal cycle of August was lower. And we've had lots of things disrupting that in previous years, whether it's COVID, lockdowns, stamp duty holidays, interest rate rises or decreases. So I think it feels a little bit like a return to the normal cycle. And therefore September would naturally be an increase in buyer activity as well. So we may start to see that return.
I think it's good signs. It feels like there's a bit of a calm. There's been a massive storm in the mortgage market in general, I think, good and bad, in the last few years. And it feels like we can't predict the future, but it feels like there's a lot more calm. And I think there is a bit more positivity about particularly the mortgage market with interest rates on hold. But that kind of has a snowball effect on, like you say, the properties itself, and people gaining confidence in wanting to buy again, because when you see in the news interest rates going up and then up and then up, you sort of think, oh God, I don't think like you say, people are holding off and waiting for maybe interest rates or property values, and it's quite scary. So I think it's so far so good. I don't want to be too optimistic, so I don't want to jinx it, but certainly seems a bit more positive from what you're telling us. Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, this is just what the data's saying as well. So it's good to see that rather than, you know, a particular take on it. This is literally what the data is looking like. So impact on house prices. So Richard Donnell, who is an executive director at Zoopla, possibly a future guest on Let's Talk Property, we'll see. He suggests that house price falls have been moderate or modest, I should say, despite the challenging environment. And actually, average house prices, this actually surprised me. Average house prices right now still 17% more expensive than before the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, wow. 17%
higher than at the start of COVID and the pandemic. So that's only what 4 years ago. No, 3 years ago. 3.5 years ago. So house prices right now are still, despite all of the news of house prices dropping, and actually house prices have dropped. We have seen that in the data.
Yeah.
House prices, if you went back 3 years ago, just 3.5 years ago, there would have been 17% lower than where we are right now. So unless house prices, I guess even if house prices drop a further 17% this year or next year, they're still only going to be on a par with where they were 3.5 to 4 years ago. That really surprised me because, that seems like a massive difference in house prices in such a short space of time.
Yeah, that would take a hell of a crash, 17% drop. That would take a big crash. And I always think a lot of the comparisons are made to last year, and last year and the last 2 years are a bit of a wild sort of, an unusual, and they're always compared. It's like house prices have dropped this year, but they're dropping compared to last year. And you just absolutely said they've gone up 17% or whatever in the last 3 years. So actually, year on year, technically, they're probably going up on their normal. Well, to me, looking on the outside in, it's probably just going on their normal course. It might just be a bit more realigned this year because last year was just bonkers. So, yes, that's really interesting because I think you see in the news all property values are dropping or dropped a little bit, but they're still some way off where they were 3 years ago. I didn't know that, so that's really good to know.
No. Yeah, and I guess great news if you're a homeowner and you're worried your house price is going to drop. Understandably, if you've bought in the last 3 years, then you might see your house price drop below what you bought it for. But hopefully that's only temporary until, it's only important then when you're looking to sell or release any equity. And I'm in that boat. I bought a year ago, almost a year ago to the day almost. So I was in that kind of rush of people that moved. It was mad, and actually our house price has gone up, but then I'm expecting it to go down, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes down below what we paid for it. But actually I'm not too concerned because we're definitely going to be here for the foreseeable future, 5 to 10 years time at least. So I think actually I'm not really going to pay too much attention personally on what my house is worth until I come to sell it. And like you said, I think if you take that step back and look at the overall kind of curve of the house prices on the graph, then actually I think we'll probably see a similar trend long term that we've seen before. So there's a few other points, but I'm not going to go too much into them because of time. But really interestingly, a couple of other sort of factors. Since August, demand has improved across all UK regions, with noticeable increases in southern England, and demand is up. Do you want to take a guess how much you think demand is up in the southeast and London in the past 4 weeks as a percentage?
Demand is up in the last 4 weeks. 20%?
In southeast and London. Oh, that's good. Yeah, 19% in the southeast. And I've got no prizes for you. And 16% increase in London. So again, August shows how quiet it was, but actually it also shows that the market is moving still, and actually people are looking to take action. So the other thing, I think in terms of future outlook, it's expected, according to this article, it's expected that house prices will continue to drift lower. especially in southern England, with a projected 2 to 3% decrease by the end of the year. So again, nothing spectacularly. They're not talking massive numbers. It might feel like it. 2 to 3% on a big number is a lot of money. But actually, again, if you're not actually selling, or if you take a look at actually what you bought a property for, if you are selling, as long as, you know, statistically, it's very unlikely that you'll see less back from what you bought it for, I think, as long as you bought it sort of 3+ years ago. Yeah, so actually not a huge, and again, who knows, you know, I have to caveat that no one's got a crystal ball and anything can happen, especially with a general election next year, hopefully. But we'll see what happens on the interest on the impact of the housing market and the house prices there as well, because it's so sensitive, isn't it? And also interest rates, like we talked about, interest rate changes. You know, it's now looking a little bit more positive. Interest rates are climbing down slowly, but they are climbing down from the peak they were at, you know, earlier on this year. And again, that's restoring a bit more confidence in buyers. So I think, you know, with all of those combinations, activity and buyers picking up again is going to sort of almost cushion that blow of house prices coming down, and therefore, you know, it's not looking like we'll see a massive further drops by the end of the year. Who knows what next year holds, but we will see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a year ago. I think this week when the Liz Truss sort of policies come in and the lenders pulled all their rates. And really weirdly, on the flip side of that, I feel like this is probably one of the most positive months we've had in the last 12 months in the property market, and maybe more specifically mortgage market. But with interest rates on hold, it's probably one of the more positive months in the market. Right. So I think happy anniversary, and it's been a good.
I didn't get you a card or any flowers.
So so no, it's those facts and figures are really promising. I think for me, taking away, I think if I'm probably saying more sort of like taking from this is more the buyer's market and kind of taking advantage of that if possible. I think first-time buyers will really benefit from that at the moment. The market at the moment with the below asking price. So I think that's great episode.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with you. I think, you know, we've done an episode before on how to negotiate the best price for your house and how to position yourself in a really good way as a buyer, particularly if you are up against other buyers, and how to kind of sell yourself as a buyer to give yourself the best chance of getting that property agreed and getting that purchase agreed for your dream home. So yeah, brilliant. Well, I'm glad you liked it. I think there were some good stats in there. It made me feel a bit more positive about the market in on the whole, and I'm hoping it makes a few other people feel the same way.
Brilliant, fantastic. I'll wrap it up then. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk Property. We hope you find the discussion of the UK property market informative and helpful. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, feel free to send us a message. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and follow us on social media for updates on future episodes. Until next time, we'll see you in the property market.
That
was an echo.